and welcome to the 2022 NBA Draft at Barclays Center, home of the Brooklyn Nets and the WNBA's New York Liberty. Speaking of the WNBA, let me take a moment to recognize that today is the 50th anniversary of the enactment of Title IX, a historic law that increased access to women's sports and in large part paved the way for the creation of that league. This milestone is an opportunity to both celebrate the progress we've seen over the past 50 years and acknowledge that there's still much more work to do to elevate women's sports at every level. To our NBA fans here in the arena and around the world, thank you for making this past season, our 75th anniversary, one of the most meaningful in our league's history. Following a highly competitive regular season and a hard-fought finals, let me congratulate the Golden State Warriors on winning their 4th championship in 8 years. A lot has changed in our country and world in the 3 years since the Warriors were last in the finals. But what has remained the same is the core of that Warriors team. That core was built through the draft. Steph picked number 7. Clay, number 11. Draymond selected number 35, which underlines the importance of tonight for our teams as they look to assemble their own championship rosters. We can't close the book on last season without also recognizing the record 117 G League players who were called up and enabled us to keep going through spikes in COVID-19. Thank you to everyone at the NBA G League. All of us have been impacted by some way by this virus. As a society, we've had to collectively deal with the effects of a pandemic that have been severe and far-reaching. But despite the challenges, we hope we were able to help bring together and create a much-needed sense of empathy and community around our game, whether in our arenas or virtually. And after 3 long seasons, we're finally back to our normal calendar, hosting our draft here in June as we officially turn the page on the 2022-23 season. The young men who will hear their names called this evening have the chance to be among the next generation of stars in our league. Where will they land? We're about to find out. The first pick in the 2022 NBA Draft belongs to the Orlando Magic, who have 5 minutes to make their selection.
That roar you hear? That's the Orlando Magic fans who are just waiting to see who their team will pick number 1 overall. Just a reminder though, the Magic, they've been here a couple of times. They've thrilled audiences for decades when holding the number 1 pick. So in their 4th year as a franchise, they had Shaquille O'Neal, 1993 Rookie of the Year that they picked 1st overall. And then a year later, 94, you all remember this, a little switcheroo, selecting Chris Webber, swapping him for Penny Hardaway. And then 11 years later, Orlando, they were at it again with the number 1 pick. You're sensing a little bit of a theme here. They have some experience in this department. They selected a center. You can see it there, Dwight Howard, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. He's laid Orlando on another finals run in 2009. And Orlando, again, with the chance to pick number 1 overall. Before we dissect who could be that number 1 pick, I do want to check in with our senior NBA insider, Adrian Wojnarowski, to find out what exactly you are hearing, Woj, on who the Magic may select.
Malika, NBA teams are now preparing for the top of this lottery to see the draft board blown up. I'm told that the Orlando Magic are expected to select Duke's Paolo Banchero with the number 1 overall pick. Orlando's president of basketball operations, Jeff Weltman, ran one of the great stealth pre-draft operations, and I'm told that Banchero now is the front runner and the likely choice to be Orlando's pick at number 1.
Wow, all right. Paolo Banchero out of Duke, likely to be the number 1 pick. But Woj, one of the interesting things about this draft is just how much talent there is at the top. It's begging this question of the Orlando Magic. Hey, Magic, who you got? Who will you be taking? Might Gonzaga's Chet Holmgren that they could take. He's a rim protector. He has perimeter skills. And here's the thing, don't let his frame, his body type fool you. That is a tough dude. Or could it be Auburn's Jabari Smith Jr.? He's an elite jump shooter, a versatile defender. He has a high motor. And then there's Paolo Banchero, who Woj mentioned. He's a playmaker, he's physical, he's an elite scorer. So now we ask the question, who you got, Magic, and who you got, Jay?
Well, we had talked earlier about Jabari Smith being the number one pick, the presumptive number one pick, or Chet Holmgren of Gonzaga. It seemed like teams had moved away, and we had it slotted with Smith, Holmgren, and then Banchero going to Houston. But apropos, a Woj bomb before the draft even starts, and it's Banchero. So if they take Banchero, now all of a sudden Oklahoma City, do they have a choice to make between, they probably didn't expect that it was going to be Smith or Holmgren, number two. So that is a big shakeup at the top from what we thought it was going to be. But how exciting for all these guys. But how exciting for Paolo Banchero to join that long list of great players that have called themselves number one draft picks. And if he is taken number one, we talked about it all year, that there were three guys worthy of it, and those three guys are all worthy of it.
Well, guess what, Jay? We get to find out now. The pick is in, so let's go to Commissioner Adam Silver to find out who the Orlando Magic select.
With the first pick in the 2022 NBA Draft, the Orlando Magic select Paolo Banchero from Duke University.
Mike Miller.
Wow. Paolo Banchero from Duke goes number one overall to the Orlando Magic. You can see him hugging his family there. What a special moment. He comes from a family of hoopers. His mom, Rhonda Smith, she played at Washington, go Huskies, was drafted to the W in 2000, and he is a strong, offensively versatile player. He actually played quarterback, and he ran track and field in high school. He was an early bloomer. He continued to grow, and ultimately, he became the first Duke player with 20-plus points and 10-plus rebounds in a Final Four game since 1989. You can see him there shaking hands with Commissioner Adam Silver. What exactly are the Orlando Magic getting, Jay?
Well, they are getting maybe the best combination of size at 6'10", 255 pounds, advanced skills, and explosive power in this draft. And Orlando clearly thinks that Paolo Banchero is the best player in this draft. He was the best player on a team that had 5 NBA players in the starting lineup. And Paolo Banchero led Duke to a win over Gonzaga early in the season where he outplayed Chet Holmgren. Here you see the physicality of Banchero. He can overpower defenders going to the basket. He can take it one way, spin back with power to the other. He can shoot it from the perimeter. He can isolate in the mid-post on the elbow. I think he can get better as a defender, but when you look at his defense, his pick-and-roll defense is in the 97th percentile on pick-and-roll handlers.
Absolutely, and when you look at his player comp, he's a combination of Michael Beasley with his elite skill set for us being able to score the ball, get buckets, create, and score it with difficulty. On the other end, I look at Ben Simmons, his ability to make plays for others, his ability to attack in transition and make plays and get to the basket downhill and take up the space. He has that
3% from three, but he can be a high flyer that can finish and a lob target. He was able to block some shots in the minutes he got at UCLA, but he played on a veteran team. And so physically, he's not there yet. He's a longer-term project. You know, you could argue that he might have been better off going back to UCLA and trying to become a dominant college player before he came into the NBA. But that's exactly what we were just talking about with Patrick Baldwin Jr. and Peyton Watson, going with the upside rather than the productivity that they had out of college.
Well, you can see him making his way down from the stands. I love when players who have come all the way, even though they're not in the green room, to make sure they get their moment on stage with the commissioner. You can see him there getting his, and once again, this is on the move.
That concludes the first round of the NBA draft. Thank you to the passionate fans here at Barclays Arena. The second round will be conducted by Brooklyn native and Deputy Commissioner Mark Tatum. Enjoy the rest of the evening, and thank you very much.
I want to bring in our front office insider, Bobby Marks, who has more on the last pick, Peyton Watson.
Yeah, Malika, Jay hit it right on the head. This is a upside pick, and when you're Denver picking at 30, you can take the risk on taking a player that averaged 12 minutes a game, 3.3 points a game. That is the fewest amount of any first-round pick that we have seen here. So this is going to take a little bit of a while, but when you have a Denver team that has the MVP, the reigning MVP back-to-back years, and Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr., a playoff team, you can wait. And this player is certainly worth the wait. Only 19 years old, a 7'1" wingspan.
Thanks, Bobby. That's exactly what Jay was talking about, right? It was the fact that we have time, these teams have time toward the end of the draft to develop potentially, or the end of the first round rather, to develop these players. Take a look, though, at the draft headlines as the first round wraps up. The Magic, they selected Paolo Banchero, a little bit of a surprise, number 1 overall, but that surprise, that magic, that is what draft night is all about. And then 4 Duke players. Jay likes this, selected in the first round, that is tied for a program record, not to mention the third time that 2 Canadians taken in the lottery since 1985. But there are plenty of good guys still on the board here, Jay.
E.J. Liddell thought would be a first-rounder. He's in the second round now. Kennedy Chandler, Tennessee. Perk, we've talked about Jaden Hardy from the G League Ignite. There are a number of players. Trevor Keels, who has first-round talent. Same thing with Bryce McGowens from Nebraska. Christian Coloco of Arizona still available. And Scott Drew was just up here. Kendall Brown of Baylor, another upside pick. An interesting player from Toledo, Ryan Rollins. And then Justin Lewis from Marquette. I think those guys could go early in the second round.
Well,